you know what I think holds us back, like as a species? The desire to sound clever. This is just one part of a complex ego, but it's a part that affects the transfer of knowledge from one human to another. Because instead of communicating in a way that is most likely to be understood, we're often tempted to make things seem more complicated than they actually are. The implication being, this subject is complex, this person understands the subject, this person can understand complex subjects, therefore this person has some kind of intellectual superiority, right? We do this with drawn out explanations, abstract analogies, and specialist terminology. Now, I'm not saying people are evil or even that they don't have good intentions. I think most of the time that people do this, it's at least partly subconscious. It's just a human thing, right? But to bring this back to the topic of the video, one consequence is that people find fitness, insert whatever you want, confusing when it's actually quite simple. I think if you understand something, you should be able to explain it simply. And if your genuine goal is to educate, then you should want to explain it simply. So after trying to sound clever in the intro, what I want to do today is look at what it takes to get in great shape and boil everything down to its simplest form. I'm going to try and explain how to obtain an exceptional physique without using any words that you might find in a bodybuilding study. These are the 4 basic fundamentals for building an exceptional physique. Number 1, you must get stronger at moving against resistance for sets of 5 to 15 reps. Let's break down this sentence. For the most part, becoming stronger will mean moving more and more weight, but that doesn't quite cover everything. We have to look at strength as multifaceted, kind of like how you look at intelligence. It can mean moving more weight, or it can mean moving the same weight over a greater distance, or for a greater duration, or for more reps. This means that you don't always have to increase the amount of weight, but you do have to increase the workload in some capacity. I use the term resistance instead of weight because really your muscles don't know how much weight they are being asked to move. All they register is the tension created, which is affected partly by the weight, but also by the mechanics of the exercise. Why do you chest fly less than you chest press, right? It's because the mechanics are different. The chest fly is actually a far less efficient way to move weight from point A to B. So we can move less weight with a longer lever and achieve similar tension. 5 to 15 reps isn't entirely factual because you can and will build some muscle by performing sets outside of that rep range. It's just that doing your exercises for sets within that range is A, more effective for building muscle, and B, far more convenient. Now, this statement encapsulates a lot that will come after it in this video. We could actually just end the video here with a few caveats and footnotes. Jordy Lenny is my hero. Because all of your decisions about setting up your training and diet are just decisions that should enable this statement to be true. How much should you train? How much work should you do on each muscle or each exercise? How much should you eat? How much should you rest? Enough to enable progress. Which brings me to number 2. You must have the calories and nutrients available to recover from your training. Now, the best and simplest way to look at this is as follows. Every extra calorie above what you need will either go to building muscle or be stored as fat. Every calorie under what you need will either be provided by breaking down muscle or breaking down fat. When you're trying to get in shape, all you're trying to do is convince your body to tip the scales in a certain direction or to prioritize one over the other. But there are limits. When your body decides what to do with calories, it looks at 2 things: the supply and the demand. The supply of calories and the demand on your body. No amount of physical demand will cause you to build muscle if you don't have the supply of calories. Likewise, no amount of supply of calories will cause you to build muscle if you don't have the demand training stimulus. Now, let's break down that sentence. I said have the calories rather than eat the calories because high levels of body fat also count towards your supply. That's why fat people can often build some muscle as they lose weight. Importantly, and sadly, this only applies when there is a lot of excess body fat. Once you're down to normal levels, you can't really convince your body to use body fat to fuel that muscle building process because the supply is too tight, or at least you can't naturally. Nutrients means the larger or macronutrients like protein, carbs and fat, but also the smaller or micronutrients like your vitamins and minerals that you need to function properly. The word recover is actually a bit of an understatement because what you're trying to do is adapt. During training, you send the message to your muscles, I demand more than you are currently capable of. Then the body's response is to adapt to that demand. So provided the training demand is enough, we're not just returning to baseline, it's not just recovery, we're actually improving. And in this instance, that equates to building muscle. Number 3, you must get enough rest to recover from your training. Now we can complete the 3 cornerstones of building muscle and losing fat: training, nutrition, rest. In other words, ask your body to adapt, then give it the fuel and the time to do so. There's really only one part of this sentence to break down this time. What do we mean by enough rest? Again, we're going to refer to your body as if it is a separate thinking entity just for the sake of demonstration. So forgive me if this is at all patronizing. I'd just rather patronize a few people to make sure everyone understands. We spoke previously about trying to convince our bodies to tip the scales in favor of building muscle. Now to do this, of course, we increase the physical demand and then we give it a supply of calories. But those 2 things alone aren't enough. Building muscle is just one of many biological processes that occur every day. Now, some of these processes are more important for survival, so your body will make sure that they are taken care of before working down its list of priorities. If you don't sleep much, if you're constantly physically active, always in high stress situations, hungover or sick, then there are a lot of other biological processes that will take precedent ahead of building muscle. So by reducing everything else that your body has to deal with, you can bump muscle building up to the front of the queue. What this means in simple terms is 1, get enough sleep, 2, mitigate stress, and 3, stay healthy. Number 4, you must be consistent. I don't need to break this down, I've said it 1,000 times and I will probably say it 1,000 more. The truth is, building muscle on the whole takes time. It will be faster for some than others, and it will be faster for everyone when they first start training than when they're a few years in. But even if you experience really good progress for a time, if you continue for long enough, it will slow down to what feels like a snail's pace. On top of that, your body is always adapting to your current lifestyle. You don't own those gains and get to keep them forever. They're only ever on loan, and if you don't make them feel needed, you will eventually lose them. So any prolonged period of not adhering to the first 3 points will have its consequences. My advice is never stop. Even if your goals or circumstances change, by all means, slow down, reduce to even the bare minimum, but never stop entirely. You don't need to train 5 times a week, but always continue with some basics, because if later in life you want to prioritize getting in shape again, it's going to be so much easier if you're not starting from scratch. Often people start lifting when they're young, make gains, and are understandably fooled into thinking that it will always be that easy. It will not. It's harder when you're 30 than when you're 20. It's harder when you're 40 than when you're 30, etc. So the best way to be a 40-year-old in good shape is to get in shape when you're 20. Alright people, if you haven't tried my training app yet, then now is a good time to do so, because we recently introduced some pretty highly requested new features. As always, you start by going through and answering your initial onboarding questions to get a bespoke training program. Those plans, by the way, are defaulted to be full body workouts, but if you do want a push-pull leg split, you can just toggle a switch. The programs there are generated by an algorithm. They're not preloaded templates, so that means if you don't like the one you're given, you can just keep on generating more. And if for some reason you don't like any of them, you can still fully edit the exercises, reps, and sets. So essentially, you could just input your entire own program into the app if you're already following one, or you just want to create your own and then just use it for your progression. On that note, we've now also added the option to turn off the inbuilt progression system. So if you technically could progress in weight, but you just want to do another session on your current weight before moving on, you can just turn that off on the finish screen after completing your workout. We're also currently testing a feature that will allow you to enter your own custom exercises, which is useful for me personally, for example, because I have a leg extension at home. I also use a leg extension at the gym. These are both different machines with different weight stacks, so now I can create different variants of that exercise and track my progress separately. So that should be fully rolled out in the next week or two. And if you are a current user opted into the beta features, you might already see that. As always, there's a 7-day free trial for anyone who hasn't had one yet, and that comes with a reminder notification the day before the trial end, so that you don't forget to cancel if you don't actually want to subscribe. And as a bonus for anyone who made it this far into the video, starting now and for every video going forward, I'm going to be using a random comment selector to choose somebody out of the comments to win a year's free app access. So, say Aya, you might win. Say more than Aya, to be fair. You should say, like, I don't know. String a sentence together, man. Just minimum effort required. See you later.
Jordy Lenny is my hero.